Good evening and welcome to DLP TV for on this Tuesday, the 13th of May, a rainy night edition in the middle of the St. James North by-election. And we want to thank you for joining us tonight. So as usual, we will ask you to like, share the show, and also to give your comments as we have our discussion tonight, strengthening our democracy. Felicia is the one. And as you know that we are experiencing some inclement weather in Barbados today with thunder showers from this morning. So as a result of that, we had to postpone our spot meeting this evening at Rockdundo, but we were still able to have the opening of our second campaign office at Rockdundo. And we had speeches this afternoon by our candidate, Felicia Dujon, and our political leader, Thorne, as well as our candidate for St. Michael East, Mr. Ensley Grainger. And we had prayers by Pastor David Payne from the Christian Mission Church in Rockdundo, and Father Valmon from the St. Francis Catholic Church, and our resident pastor, David Durant, who offered blessings on our new facility. So as we have this show this evening, as the weather will definitely not stop the LPTV from happening, we thank you for joining us and we ask you to like and share. And this evening on the panel, I am joined by, to my left, General Secretary, Mr. Pedro Shepherd, and to my right, immediate right, our candidate for Christchurch West, Mr. Andrew Cave, and Dr. Elvis Wickham. And we will have other candidates joining us this evening as we go on. And of course, our star candidate, Felicia Dujon, our candidate in the St. James North by-election, and our political leader, Thorne. So gentlemen, we open the baton, and I want to hear from you, your feel for the St. James North campaign so far, and the chances of the Democratic Labour Party in bringing about that change. So we'll start with our General Secretary, Mr. Pedro Shepherd.
Thank you and good evening, viewers. Good evening, Barbados. Good evening to those who are watching in the diaspora. I believe in this by-election called in St. James North, where the Democratic Labour Party has carefully selected its candidate in Mrs. Felicia Dujon, that we have a very good chance at winning this by-election, but we are not taking anything for granted, and therefore we are going to do all that we can in the constituency, ensuring that our candidate and our canvassers visit every single constituent in the constituency of St. James North, and we are going to give her all the support necessary to ensure that this seat, the St. James North seat, is recaptured by the Democratic Labour Party, having won it sometime before. We intend to win this by-election and recapture this St. James North seat, because St. James North, from all that I have seen while canvassing on the ground, lacks representation. It is sad to see that it was represented by a Barbados Labour Party MP for approximately 30 plus years, and the condition of the roads are as they are, the condition of the issue with transportation, the issue with overgrown bush in the constituency, housing in the constituency. It is sad that after 30 odd years of representation by the Barbados Labour Party, that those things in the constituency would now have to be fixed by a Democratic Labour Party candidate in opposition, and that is Felicia Dujon. Of course, we do not intend for Felicia to be in opposition for any length of time, because it is our hope that we can win this by-election, place Felicia Dujon in the lower house of Barbados to sit on the left of our current leader, the Honorable Thorne, and the two of them, along with the two senators, Senator Ryan Walters and Senator Andrew Worrell, will surely, over the next few months, push this Democratic Labour Party to victory. And that is the aim of us in this by-election, to ensure that we set the platform for a victory whenever the general elections are called in Barbados.
Right. Thank you, Pedro. And next to you, Andrew, we have been having a number of spot meetings and political meetings and a number of mass canvass by members of the party in the St. James North constituency. We have two campaign houses now, one at in Mount Sandpass and the other in Wat Dundo. But I want to hear from you. Are you feeling the campaign spirit and are you feeling a victory in St. James North for Felicia Dujon?
Andrea, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to voice my opinion. Good night, Barbados, and especially good night to St. James North, the good people of St. James North. Andrea, I am excited about this, my election, and it gives me great hope, right, for the Democratic Labour Party and the soul of this country, because the reception of the end of there is phenomenal. And I was part of the canvassing team, and I went to many houses, and you know, I spoke to many persons, and they're of the view that Felicia Dujon is the choice. It's their choice. You know, I come across some persons who would also give me that, you know, say those same words to me. However, there's effects of fear dominating this country. And I want to say to the people of St. James North, right? I just want to say to the people of St. James North that to have courage to do what is right for this country. Yes. Because it is very important. This is not only a by-election, you know. Don't see it as only a by-election, but this election is for the country of Barbados. And we need to bring it home. We need to give Felicia Dujon the vote and make sure that she sits in the seat next to our political leader, Ralph Thorne.
Exactly. And I find that when I am going through the constituency, one of the things, even people driving by the office or you're walking on the roads, one of the things that I hear a lot when I got to get rid of that arrogant man. So, Dr. Wickham, I know that you've been canvassing with us. What is your feel on the ground in St. James North?
Good evening, Barbados. Good evening to the DLP family. Good evening to the wider world. And definitely good evening to the good people of St. James North. The feel on the ground is, as you said, Andre, that there is need for change in representation of the constituency. BLP has represented the constituency for 34 consecutive years, and there are issues that they're now trying to fix raised by our candidate, Felicia, that all of a sudden after 34 years, they now became aware that roads need fixing. They're now all of a sudden aware that there's a need for street lights and so on. I definitely get the feeling that, you know, persons are on the one hand optimistic, and on the other hand, there's also a bit of fear out there, which I know has been spoken of from our platform. Is interesting that in a democracy, as we claim to be here in Barbados, the level of fear of victimization that people have in this country. But persons have been expressing their support for Felicia, and I urge all members of all eligible voters in St. James North to get out there on the 21st and make sure that their voice is heard. Make sure that their voice is heard in a way which it could not have been back in 2022, January 19, 2022, when thousands in Barbados were knowingly disenfranchised by this government calling an election during COVID, at a time when thousands were in home isolation and in facilities isolation. So this is your opportunity, St. James North, to get out there and let your voice be heard.
Yeah. And I want to know that you've mentioned the fear, because that is something that you've been hearing a lot from persons as you canvass the constituency. This fear and the resentment as well, because people do not like this feeling. It's almost as though there's a oppressive feeling happening in this country, and that is not the way how we do government. So I'm going to go back in the other order, and I'll give you opportunity to speak a little bit more about that. What is really causing this fear?
I've been paying close attention to politics in Barbados since 1991. So there's quite a few elections, and I have not seen this level of fear before. In fact, I was even told, I was personally told this before getting involved, and since my involvement in politics, be careful, be careful. You know, they're going to kill your business. They're going to kill your business. Those people don't like individuals speaking out against them. They're going to kill your business. That is even stopping some persons who may want to come out to the meetings to speak, you know, causing some person to hold back. They'll tell you they'll give their support, but they don't want to be seen. You know, there's a camera everywhere nowadays. They don't want to be seen, identified with the opposition. That level of fear, I heard it said, though, they lose their power when we lose our fear. We have a right to speak, to support whoever our candidate is or whichever party we choose to support. And when we get out there and exercise that right, they lose their power.
Well, I think is rather unnatural. And one of the things that I do notice about our meetings, especially when we have we had our meeting in Weston. And from the time we were setting up, yes, we had a late start. We saw the cars driving in. And there were several areas, vantage points in Weston where people could watch the meeting. When I was on the platform, I noticed that persons were all the way over by the fish market, sitting down, listening to the meeting. There's a bus stop right there. People were there. Then I noticed the cars and people walking with their chairs. There was a gap. And then behind us, persons were parked behind the stage.
Yes.
And then there was a dark area where you saw the persons coming from. So you generally have that interest of persons in the constituency for what is happening and for Felicia Dujon as well. So Andre, I want you to just give us you know, your take on that, this fear situation, and what do we need to do to overcome that, this pressure?
Thank you very much, Andrea. You know, when we speak about fear, you know the acronym of fear: false evidence appearing real. and so I want to say to the people of Barbados, do not allow this fear that's over this country to stop you from exercising your constitutional right. It is your constitutional right. When you think about people like Bassa, who died for the cause, and many of our forefathers who died for the cause, they're operating outside the realm of their fear to make sure that we exercise our right today. And they believe that we in Barbados, because this same subject matter is not introduced into our educational system. For example, in 1951, do you know, only in 1951 that was the first year that we were able to vote in Barbados as an indigenous people, right? Before that, only if you carried a particular pigmentation in your skin, right? Or if you were wealthy, you had the right to vote. But before 1951, you did have the people in this country did not have the right to vote. And I am saying to the people of this country that we are taking it for granted. We don't understand because sometimes we don't know. And I believe that it's possible that this type of information has been kept from our educational system to psychologically disenfranchise us as a people, right? So if you don't know this, right, you just take voting for granted, right?
Yeah, and I'm seeing some comments there. And one of the things that we have a lot of people in this campaign praying for us. You have comments there, have no fear, Dr. Wickham. God is with us. And there are a lot of people out there actually praying for this campaign. I was told that there's a group who've created a prayer group that pray extensively for this campaign. And you can see the blessings coming in because, you know, we were mocked on social media for not having any campaign offices, and now we have two. We have two campaign offices. Exactly. And all in all, things are falling in within the campaign. But I want to send a message. In 1986, when you had that election, there was a lot of fear in Barbados too. There was the fear of the tyranny of Tom Adams. And you know what Barbadians did? They got the brooms and they sweep out the bees. They smoke them out. And I believe that that will happen in this campaign, this St. James North by-election campaign is just the start of that. Right, Pedro?
I believe so. I am confident that Barbadians are getting over their fear somewhat. As you said, Andre, the fear came in the era of former Prime Minister Tom Adams, and the fear again has gripped us under this current Prime Minister. Whenever the Barbadian Party is in power, to some extent, even Barbadians have a fear because of the style of leadership that is exhibited. Under the Democratic Labour Party, persons are free to do as they like. We will recall between 2008 and 2018 the number of protest marches that had across this country, the number of persons who spoke against the Democratic Labour Party without fear. Because the Democratic Labour Party believes in freedom of expression, believes in democracy, and so on. But I believe that Barbadians are now at the point where they are getting over their fear, because while canvassing in St. James North, people are giving us the sort of support to indicate that they are not fearful. They might not come out to meetings because they don't want, at this point, to be seen. Because as you know, there's a clear distinction between what you hear now, red or yellow. And so a person may not want to be seen wearing yellow. Speak to people. They are not showing that level of fear. They're giving support. And I believe that our candidate, Felicia Dujon, is going to be victorious in this. There are people in the constituency who have not seen their representative for the last 10 years, but they're now seeing a whole set of red in the constituency. Mention was made of the fact that roads are now being done. They now recognize that the constituency is dark and then installing 400 street lights. And a whole set of things are going to happen now, but I believe that persons in the constituency have recognized that it is only election time that the Barbados Labour Party provide. Whereas with the Democratic Labour Party, we provide all during our tenure. If you look at the last decade, as they call it, you can see progress every single day. You look at the Santos lab, you look at the number of nursery schools that were built, the number of schools that were refurbished, you look at the massive housing program, yet people say that we did nothing. If you look at the last 7 years of this administration, what do you see? You see ministers getting fat. You see people driving luxury cars, moving out into electric vehicles, etc. You recall when the former Prime Minister Stewart changed his car, there was a big hurrah about it.
Not his car.
Well,
Changed.
M50.
Right, which is
the Prime Minister's car.
vehicle.
Because he still drives the plants. I must state that he still drives the plants today. But there was a big hullabaloo, big hurrah about it. What is M50 today?
That probably changed 3 times since then.
Nobody's even aware that M50 has been changed, because this government is not about people, it's not about the average Barbadian. So when the campaign on this notion about caring and so on, who do they really care about? They care about themselves, they care about family. This whole by-election is just a clear example of that. Because if we drill down, as the Prime Minister will tell you, what would have caused Mr. Hinkson to step aside? There's another 10 months, 11 months in the term. What would have caused Mr. Hinkson to step aside? What caused the Barbados Labour Party to bring Mr. Blackman back from Geneva? What caused them to keep posting the diplomatic opening in the UK open all this time? And we have to seriously look at it, because I'm hearing and people have to recognize that at the end of this by-election, the Barbados Labour Party will be no worse off. And that's why the Democratic Labour Party has to gain. Because at the end of this by-election, on the 22nd of May, Mr. Blackman will become again the Minister of Educational Transformation, and he will become a senator in the Senate of Barbados. God forbid, and he wins this election, he will become Minister of Educational Transformation on the 22nd, and he will be in the lower house. So the difference really is upper and lower. More money added to the salary of the representative. And I'm saying to the people of St. James now that don't just look at it as red and yellow, but drill down and understand in this by-election that it is about, not about St. James North or about the country Barbados. It is about an individual or two or three individuals in the Barbados Labour Party benefiting significantly. Nobody in St. James North is going to benefit from this by-election unless the outcome is that Felicia Dujon is given the opportunity to represent their interests in the Parliament of Barbados. And we have already heard Mrs. Dujon speaking about her plans for the constituency. What have we heard coming from the Barbados Labour Party saying? What are they proposing to do in the constituency? The MP will run. Or the candidate will be running. He'll be eating less. He will be having a cooperative set up for farmers. Basic things that I'm certain for the last 30 years of representation by the Barbados Labour Party could have been had. But they had no ideas, no plans for the constituency. But now you come and you want to make people believe that putting Mr. Blackman in the Parliament of Barbados will make a significant difference for the people of St. James North. And I'm saying to the people of St. James North tonight that it will make no difference if Mr. Blackman is elected. It makes a significant difference if Mrs. Felicia Dujon is elected as your representative in St. James North to serve in the Parliament of Barbados. And I'm sure that with the 11 or 12 intervening months before general election, tremendous work will be done by Mr. John in the constituency of St. James.
I think that we have a candidate who has shown a lot of passion and a lot of commitment. And a stark comparison between Ms. Dujon and what she is capable of doing, and the other candidate, who, even when he speaks, he goes on a trajectory way above and gives you a lot of buzzwords. He speaks as though he is reading a thesis, and it fails to connect with the people of Barbados. But when you hear Felicia Dujon, you hear passion, you hear commitment, and you hear things that she can relate to. One of the things that Felicia brought when we opened the campaign office in Rockdundle, she spoke about single parents and mothers on the eve of Mother's Day. And she made it clear that she believes that some subsidy should be offered to single parents in Barbados, male and female, which I think is because she recognized from canvassing the constituency the challenges that persons are facing. She said a lot of persons lost their spouses due to COVID and are now forced to raise children on their own. When you think of the current situation, a lot of young men are dying and leaving children, even toddlers, to be raised by their mothers or grandparents. So when you think about things like that, you are hearing a real solution. We have joining us tonight Nathaniel Boyce, and our candidate for St. Michael South. So Nathaniel, I want you to bring you in on this discussion and talking about what are the things that separate Felicia from the other guy. And we're not talking about the other guy.
Hi, good night, everybody. Pleasant night. That's the panel. Well, we on the eve of a by-election, we will have canvassed in St. James North with Felicia, and for my one of it, canvassing with her. We see that persons in the constituency, they're looking for a change. And on that change can only come by electing Mr. John. Now, we've seen, like across the other constituencies, that this constituency seems to be, it has been really been neglected. We went the whim, we see the bad roads, we walk those bad roads in that constituency. We see the areas where there's lots of bush, you know. We went to some other areas where, and as we canvassed and it got a little later, where there was very poor lighting, transportation as well, to where we have individuals, they have to do, because the probably walk over maybe 200 meters or a little bit more to get to their homes, especially coming to late at night time. Felicia, we know, has been advocating for not just for people in St. James North, but for the country for a while. You normally would have heard her as it relates to the education, where like things she brought to the attention, the IDB survey, and there obviously a survey that would have obviously impacted on some students where you were asked some questions about consent of their parents. We see she has been advocating for the schools, teachers, where you have an individual who, well advocating, have been some issue turns about these schools even before those persons who are close to the real action. She knows about it and she makes herself felt. She's there in the media, advocating, trying to get some results. Schools, we know a lot of schools have been having a lot of challenges, environmental challenges, sick buildings. We have other situations too with students. So Mr. John is not just a person, as I heard a comment, I think from one of the ministers, Mr. Simmons, and he said it's fly by night. She's not a fly by night, a person that I like Chad, and try not to terms of discussion change it too much, but we've obviously in the media recently, we've had a lot of persons poking at her, you know, as relates to nationality and even causing disruption too in our schools. And I'm sure Pedro too, he can agree with me, where the government of the day has sought to make it political, to obviously to sway what is happening as relates to in the St. James North, because we sense that obviously the DLP at this time, they're very scared. The persons on the ground that we've canvassed, and I can say to you honestly about 98%, they have said they're looking for a change. They might not openly wear the yellow or attend the meetings, but listen to them, going to their homes, having that intimate conversation with them. They're hoping that on that day, others will join with them too and come up and make that change. You know, some persons are upset, for whatever reasons, in the past, and we say to them, we have moved on. We are a party, and we are a government in waiting, where we are here ready to serve the persons of the people of Barbados, and we would like that to start with St. James North. So Felicia is that person going forward. You see that she's out there, so she's working, she has been working. She's been trying to say, she said that she's going to try, and I believe her, she's going to try to see if she can get every household in St. James North to speak to them, all right, to find out their concerns, because when she gets in, she wants to make sure that she starts right, she's right on the ball, and get the job, start working at hand. So,
yeah. All right, thanks, Natalia. And I want the producer to put up a clip that we have in terms of voting for FEL. Now, and just to show how people feel, not that one, that one, in terms of voting for FEL. And it is spreading across the country that you had an article, I believe, in last week, Friday's paper, encouraging persons, chat is bad. I think that's what it says. I can't read the small print from here. Too small. very encouraging person. You know, but just talking about the country has gone astray just like the goats. And it needs to come back on track. And all of these are things that we are facing as we canvass. And it's saying to us, vote, Chad is bad, vote for Fel because she speaks well. And not only that, but it would allow you to speak. So I don't know if the producer will be able to highlight that and share it. Let me see. I don't know if Dr. Wickham
can read it.
You can read it? Go ahead.
You see this? Excerpt is taken from an article that was written by Mr. Richard Hode in the May 12, 2025 edition of the Daily Nation newspaper. I eat up all of my rice, but I vote for freedom. I tells you how the food was nice, but I vote for freedom. Don't vote, Chad. Things real bad. Cyber bill can kill we. Let's try Fel. She speaks well, and we may talk free. Vote with your conscience and put a little balance back in Parliament. Like my goat, Barbados, this is democracy has gone astray. It's time to get it back.
And you know, it's important that he mentioned the cyber bill because I want people to remember that the MP who just resigned from St. James North, Edmund Hickson, was the person who chaired the committee with that cybercrime bill and brought back a report that when Barbadians spoke out about the bill and rejected the penalties and all of that and said to the government that this was restricting freedom of speech. But instead of bringing back a report which addressed the concerns of Barbadians, what did he do?
He doubled down. Believe it or not, sections 19 and 20 of that bill, which was the main area of concern for the majority of the public, where there were penalties of up to 7 years or up to 70,000. After hearing from the public and various submissions were made, Mr. Hinkson, said to Barbadians, I don't care. In fact, because you complain, we're going to make it worse. Instead of 7 years, maximum penalty will now be 10 years. Maximum fine will now be 100,000. So instead of reducing fines or reducing penalty, addressing the concerns of Barbadians to those two sections of the bill, section 19 and 20, proposal was to increase the penalty and increase the fine because they're intent on shutting up Barbadians.
Exactly.
And one other thing, that particular section of the bill, it was very important to note that it didn't matter whether what was said and under the proposal, whether what was said caused offense to an individual was factual or not. So you can be fined up to $100,000, 10 years in jail for speaking the truth, but because somebody's feelings are hurt by the truth. And this was in spite of the concerns of Barbadians. Mr. Hinkson recommended an increase in penalties.
And then you had today an example in the House because it seemed as though part of that cybercrime legislation, which Chad Blackman also supported as well, and the penalties brought with it, it wants to say something against the government. It all is wrong, but the government could say whatever it likes against the people. And you had a classic example of that today in Parliament with the Minister of Education. I don't know if she's Minister of Education and may trust her
Acting.
full ministry yet, but Sandra Husband, when she dropped a salacious bit of information and did not see it fit to qualify it or bring any evidence to support it. Now, those are things that should even go against the cybercrime bill. But once it is the government that is saying it, or the Barbados Labour Party, all is well. But if any member of the public has something to say against someone from the Barbados Labour Party, they want to penalize you and convict you with the cybercrime bill.
We spoke of that, the whole matter of parliamentary privilege at a previous DLP TV show that we held, where politicians, parliamentarians hide behind parliamentary privilege to say a lot of things that they wouldn't dare say on the outside of Parliament. Yet we have a cybercrime bill proposed that would place harsh penalties on citizenry for speaking the truth, but they can get in Parliament, say whatever salacious or other news they dare to say, and because of parliamentary privilege, no consequence.
Yes, exactly. And all of these are things that people are concerned about. That's why the level of fear is so high. That's why the level of victimization, because you also have to talk about the victimization with the fact that this government, a government that's supposed to be protecting labor, have so many people in Barbados working on the contracts, short-term contracts, which means you got to beg to get back your job. So speak to us a little bit about that, Andrew, and what you have been finding in terms of your canvassing and how people who are working in that situation feel about it.
Andrea, I've knocked on many doors, and many of those persons who have been placed on contracts, who work with the different entities and organizations through Barbados. You know what they say to me?
Mm-hmm.
They can't go to the credit union or to a bank to get a loan or to get a mortgage. That this is something that we really need as a party and as a country to understand, because the truth is that many of us go to school, get an education, and you know what? We want a piece of the rock. And if you don't get a piece of the rock, you don't feel as though that you're doing something for your family. And you know, the truth is, I work in insurance, and you know, persons want to use our insurance policies to leave a legacy. Persons want to be able to go to the bank to get a mortgage or a loan in order to get a mortgage so that they can also leave a legacy for their families. So I believe that these particular things are being instituted, are being placed upon our people, are disenfranchised, and it needs to stop now. It needs to stop, Andrew.
And not by a government, because the government is supposed to be protecting the people. The government is supposed to be protecting the vulnerable. And if you have the government shortchanging the people by, you know, going into that employment practices of short-term contracts and not paying NIS, it's only obvious that the private sector would also do the same thing as well. And today you also heard the Employment Confederation speaking out against the new adjustment to the minimum wage, saying that the employers need to be given adequate time or notice. So you see that you have a government all around, because it is not just a small man that they're victimizing, you know, that living in fear is also the business owners as well, that they are penalizing and victimizing as well, and they too are living in fear. But Andre, I understand that you have something special for Felicia.
Yes.
So you can, Mr. Cameraman, you can zoom in on Mr. Andrew Cave. Introduce it.
So this is the spoken word I did specially for our winner of this by-election, Miss Felicia Dujon. Right? What makes you so strong, Miss Dujon? You are God-fearing, fine, fabulous, faithfully filled with the fruit of substance. You are a woman fiercely fought and fights for the disenfranchised and minimize and mitigates the harsh realities of our youth and our teachers. What makes you so strong, Miss Dujon? You are a trendsetter, a go-getter, a record breaker, a humble professor, a homemaker, and definitely a national leader. A mother ready to give birth to a new generation. What makes you so strong, Mr. John? You are a lady of class, clearly, cleverly clothed with a clean character, created for such a seasoned, sensitive, sentimental, sensational time as this. To unmask the political corruption, even political weapons of mass destruction, delusion, destruction, division, and confusion. We have no time to waste or chase files filled with filth, wars, and national fatalities, fear of propaganda, slander, and false messages to mislead, misguide, and misinform the masses. What makes you so strong, Miss Dujon? Sadie boy, big doesn't mean better, best, or beautiful. Better beware. Compact And thereof, and Dujon is out front and way ahead of the big man. I hear the big man is nowhere to be seen. I think he's still in bed. But what makes you so strong, Mr. Dujon? You are a Queen Esther, so eloquent, excellent, confident, and intelligent. A character of a Michelle Obama. You stand on the shoulders of a Sarah Ann Gill, a Denita Barrow, and an Elsie Payne, a combination of a great legacy gain. What makes you so strong, Mr. Dujon? Then is a word of achievement. One is a word of retreat. Might is a word of bereavement. Can is a word of defeat. Will is a word of commitment. Can is a word of power. Win is the word that we all will be chanting on the 21st of May 2025. What makes you so strong, Mr. Dujon? Today we stand on the backs of our forefathers of the Democratic Labour Party, an entity with a real democracy. You water the seeds that were planted on 70 years of dedication, liberation, admiration, affirmation, and activation of independence. Pioneered by our late Honorable Sir Errol Wharton Barrow. Not borrow, like the Prime Minister borrow, but built on a free educational system for a better tomorrow. What makes you so strong, Mr. Dujon? When God is with you, we become the majority. So the people of St. James North, it is time to move on with Felicia Dujon. Felicia Dujon is the one.
All right. The campaign is inspiring creativity. That is all because of Felicia Dujon and the passion which she is bringing to the campaign, and also the creativity in which she will go about representation. That is why the people of St. James North has one clear choice on May 21st, and that is to vote for Felicia Dujon, to vote for that change. When you look at it, the Barbados Labour Party had that constituency for a number of years. And one of the things that I find fascinating when you go into that constituency, you have the luxury villas and condominiums right next to the, well, imprisoning the channel houses, to the extent that you don't have proper walkways and access to some of the houses in the constituency. If you had a representative that really cared about the constituency, they would have invited some sort of balance in dealing with that. Or just to make the single argument that if you are building a condominium or a villa, you have to upgrade the roads. That's your area, so you talk about it on Sports Forum for Transport and Workers.
Yes, Andre. I believe that if, as you said, if you are allowing persons to build condominiums and those things in what was the traditional residential or tenantry areas, that some consideration should be given to having them improve the utilities in that area. I believe that there should not be a condominium next door to cattle houses where there's no road, where the building is poor, where parking becomes less because with condominiums and so on, you have parking for your tenants, which reduce sometimes the parking for the irregular persons. And even where the constituency office is in Mount Stanton, it is in an area where you can see the stark difference between those who have and those who have but have little, or those who don't have. And I don't think it ought to be a government responsibility after the condominiums go up for people to be asking the government to improve their roads and the network, the service, the utility services and so on. And so I believe that the former representative of the constituency, in that area, neglected his duty and his responsibility to the constituents of St. James North. And why would you, therefore, want to replace him with anyone who would carry it on, who would carry on the same practice of neglect? So it is quite indicative, therefore, in this by-election, that the residents of St. James North go for change. At least if you change from the type of representation you had to a different type of representation, it will at least allow you a chance to see if you can get better. And I believe that any representation coming after the last representative has to be better. I don't think we can get any representation any worse than we would have had in the last 34 years in St. James North. And this is the perfect opportunity for the residents of St. James North to introduce Mrs. Felicia Dujon to the Parliament of Barbados. And whilst she might not have a ministry, I'm sure that her advocacy would ensure that the roads in St. James North are addressed. I am sure that the street lights being brought in would be turned on, because there's always the possibility that there will be 400 street lights. Whether they turn them on before the 21st is another point that we would have to look at. So I know that Felicia Dujon would ensure that those 400 street lights are connected and working, and that people are not fooled and bamboozled into thinking that after 34 years not having light, that one day you just see lights. These are things that you have to, I guess, have some procurement for. I believe it's a process. And to say that you're just going to bring 400 lights, let us see the lights and let us see lights turn on before we put the X. And if it cannot be, then you don't put the X for anybody other than Felicia Dujon. And if the lights are indeed turned on, then you say thank you. But after waiting so long, and will still put my X for Felicia Dujon. So whether you get lights or you get roads between now and the 21st, I think that the people of St. James North have a responsibility and a duty to send a message to the Barbados Authority that they cannot be used and they cannot be bought. And a change must come. And as I said at the outset, a change will come in St. James North as the start of the change that will come across Barbados to take Barbados out of the clutches of this government, which is certainly not good for Barbados, as we have noticed over the last 77.
And I want to come to some of the comments, especially one by Judy Jilts on the strain that Mr. Hinkson did not care about the poor Barbadians. He just wanted to lock away the poor people with that cybercrime bill. And for the time in which he was the MP, I never heard him advocating for a balance in terms of the development in the constituency, because you can't have the extreme rich living next to the poor and think that all would be fine. There should be some sort of balance and show it in the development. And then you have another person commenting about the roads in the constituency. For Burstire, you also hear from residents, especially when you go along that West Coast Road, which was recently done. There are not enough proper walkways, and it's a hazard for accidents and stuff like for persons walking on the road. It's also dark at night, and not enough sidewalks, so it's a hazard because you know that some vehicles take that road at very reckless ways. Nathaniel, I want to hear from you because we're coming on to the first hour of the show. In terms of what are some of the things that you see that need to be done in the constituency, and hopefully Felicia Dujon can go about it.
Well, you touched on the roads actually. When we went to the first launch the constituency office, that like myself and Pedro, we were walking along the roads, and like what was mentioned, at one point we thought it was gonna get licked down. And this was wet too, so obviously the conditions of the road was not the best, you know. So actually too, in terms of walking certain parts, we see that work is being done in some areas, a rush job, but some others have nothing at all, and we don't think nothing is going to be done. Always, I know if Felicia wants, she would try her best, even if I believe if it means she has to find another source of getting it done, she would do that. You know, we said situations where we saw the elderly in some homes, some individuals said that they have to rely on obviously a niece or nephew. In some situations, they don't have anybody, so they have to fend for themselves. And in an area like that, it's not I believe, like St. Michael, where you have to, some most persons don't have any transportation, so they have to walk or probably rely on somebody to come and get them, to take them for what they need to get. You know, we see situations of housing too, where persons are trained to help themselves, but obviously, you know, where individuals are not working. In some cases, we met a member house, the individual, I think he was probably supporting the Barbados Party in the past. Going forward, he will not. Obviously, in terms of coming up voting, it's a little sketchy, but he's the only breadwinner in his family. I think there are about 5 individuals, and he's working off and on. And he would have reached out to the MP. And once again, it was a bad situation in terms of response that was given to him. So yeah, obviously persons are frustrated with that situation. We met single parents too as well. And I know Felicia would have touched on that, but obviously where more needs to be done. And she did say that more needs to be done in terms of probably giving them maybe something to help them, you know, because it is really rough out there in the constituency and across the board in the country.
$300 short.
Yeah. Well, I think multiple people would have mentioned that they probably got that low. I don't know what I call it vote buying, but they've got a low something, a low start to induce them to probably maybe to give the DLP a vote. But I think persons are trying to move past that and obviously looking for a future for themselves. Felicia is bringing that to the constituency, a future. She's bringing a positive and a freshness to the constituency. And for my one, I have 1 or 2 friends, teachers who live in the constituency. They actually said that she went by their homes. And myself and moving around, I met 1 or 2 principals too as well. And they all gonna give her that support, especially what was being said, especially how teachers were treated too as well in the media. So I heard on this platform, she has offered solutions. She has stated, and I'm sure in moving around, she's gonna find a lot more challenges too with the people in St. James North. Yeah.
Okay. Right. And then I also find that in terms of the young people in the constituency as well. There are a lot of persons in the constituency who feel as though they have not been represented by this current government, and that they're not providing any opportunities for young people, whether it is in terms of educational development or job opportunities. A lot of the hope which persons bought into, and as a result of that, it's important that we encourage people to get out there and vote. Because as much as we speak here about Felicia Dujon, the important thing is that we need to get people to the polls on the 21st to make that decision to vote for Felicia Dujon if they want to see change coming about. So what some of the ways in which we can encourage people now to get out there and to meet more people and get that vote out. And I want to start with you, Dr. Wickham.
I definitely would encourage everyone who is eligible to vote to get out there and vote. It is extremely important. I mean, we've met many persons on the campaign trail who have expressed a lot of apathy. Doesn't make any difference. What's the difference? They're still going to be in the majority. They're going to still do what they feel like. Barbados, just look at the things that have been exposed since Mr. Thorne crossed the floor. The things that were unknown to us. Felicia has been out there for quite some time, even before this by-election was called, advocating on the behalf of Barbadians. We need that other voice in Parliament to continue to hold the government's feet, figuratively speaking, to the fire. Every vote makes a difference. Not voting is, in essence, voting. And I said it here some time back, the price we pay for indifference to public affairs, the price we pay for not voting is to be ruled by evil men and women who pay attention to their interests and the interests of their backers at the expense of the voices of the people and the people's interests. This is our opportunity. This is your opportunity, St. James North, to go out there and vote. I recall, as I said in my introductory remarks, that January 19, 2022, during that election campaign, thousands of Barbadians, and I have no doubt among them, St. James North, were hundreds of you who were unable to vote because an election was called at a time that was not necessary. 16 months before constitutionally due, up to 19 months could have been taken, and at a time when no provision was made for you, St. James North, to vote. Prime Minister made no provisions for you to be able to vote. Other countries held elections during that time and made provisions for persons COVID positive to vote. St. James North, many of you, hundreds of you, were not allowed to vote, possibly thousands, because at the time of the election, thousands were in isolation. So this is your opportunity now, St. James North, to get out and say to the Prime Minister, enough is enough. You are not Lord over us.
And in that election in 2022, the voter turnout, in particular for St. James North, was very
40.7%.
exactly very low. It shows that a number of persons in that constituency did not think it necessary to go to the polls. But if we want to see change, you have to get up. You have
Yes.
to move on that morning. You get time off from work to go and vote. So you either go early in the morning before you go to work. The polls open at 6 a.m. in the morning. It's one day that transportation is provided. You can call the campaign office or you can call the candidate at 242-7984 if you believe that you will need transportation on the day to get to the polls. So I'm hoping that the producer will put up that number, 242-7984 if you need transportation on the day to go to vote. You can also call that number, 242-7984 if you're not certain if you are eligible to vote or where you are supposed to vote. And we will be gladly provide you with that information. Again, that number is 242-7984. And it's important to get out there to vote. And also for Barbadians, because a change in St. James North, with Felicia Dujon being the candidate, I like to say this on the platform, would be a shot across the bow of the Barbados Labour Party to let them know that we are not happy with the way in which you are governing this country. Yeah. We are not happy with the fact that transparency has gone through the NOs. We are not happy with the cost of living and the fact that you've displayed no political will to fix it, to deal with it. We are not happy with the crime situation and the fact that the government seems to know who the criminals are.
But they're paying them.
They're paying them and they're negotiating with them, but they don't want to hand them over to the Commissioner of Police and let the police protect and serve the people of Barbados the way how they ought to do. So when you vote for Felicia Dujon on May 21st, you will be telling the Barbados Labour Party administration, wheel and come again. We want a fresh approach. We want change in Barbados.
Yes.
Add to that, Mr. Spoken Word.
So thanks, man, Andrea. The truth is, I really want to reiterate and piggyback on my buddy here about apathy. What comes to mind is a saying. Evil doesn't exist because of evil men. Evil exists because good men sit around and do nothing. And what I want to say to you, St. James, no. We are tired of doing nothing. We have to get up on the 21st of May and put your vote for Felicia Dujon because we want to see change in this country. We are tired of what has happened in this country. So and we just talk about the crime situation. You look at the cost of living. People across the nation could no longer have the opportunity to go and get mortgages and loans. So this particular situation that our country is in is in a political headlock, and we need to unlock this headlock by voting for Felicia Dujon.
Oh, and short and sweet.
Like myself, you know. Well, I can't vote for this year. But we're short, you know. We just concentrated, okay?
Okay. Right. And you know, that's important. And we want to appeal to persons, all of our viewers, all of Barbados, because on the day, the 21st, is the people who live in St. James North who matter. And if you know of someone who lives in St. James
That's
North,
right. Call them.
call them and encourage them to vote. Vote for Felicia Dujon and go to the polls, because it makes no sense complaining that you don't like the cost of living and the government ain't doing anything for you. But when you have an opportunity to do something about it or make a statement about it, you stay home and you don't cast your eggs. Because by staying home, you're actually saying to the government, hey, what are you doing, you know? So you can continue to treat me the way you are. You can continue to kick me like a dog on the curb or whatever the case may be. That is what you are actually doing and saying when you do not exercise your right to vote. When you go and exercise your right to vote, the person that it says, I support this person because I support their ideas, and I do not support this person because they're not necessarily agreeing with me. And you will send a strong message when the tally is made up. And that is what Barbadians need to understand, that not voting is more or less conformity with what is going on. So if you don't vote, don't complain. That is the point.
You don't have breaking rights.
You don't have breaking rights. You gave it up. Right? So I want to give because we have another set of panelists to come on. You have another set of panelists to come on for the night. Two other panelists to come on for the night. So I want to give an opportunity to Nathaniel to just give us some words of encouragement, not spoken words, but words of encouragement for the St. James North election.
Well, what I'd like to say, I'll keep it short. This indoctrination that we have seen across the country since 2018 is wearing off. Persons no more the dangling in front of their eyes. You know, the brainwashing. Persons are realizing, especially since the political leader, he would have made his way back home, back to the Democratic Labour Party at the budget. He would have awakened a lot of persons to what is really happening in the country. And I'm sure in moving around St. James North, a lot of those persons too have awakened. We hear what they said. I'm sure Felicia too, she's listening. She's speaking on their behalf already. She's out there so trying her best. All she needs now is for you to come on board on the 21st and put your ex. I myself, I'm out there, so all my colleagues too that live in the constituency and others too, train, understand, and get them to as well, because we're not leaving any stone unturned. All right? We want you to come out on the 21st and vote for change and vote for a future for your children, your grandchildren.
Right. Thank you, Natalia. And tonight we have with us a very hardworking, I think they call her the pocket rocket in terms of our canvasser, Ms. Felicia Dujon, who, even though the rain was pouring today, she made sure and insisted that she would still be out in the fields today.
And yesterday.
And yesterday, every single day, because I know you have to be there and you have to meet the people. Yeah. How was it for you today?
Well, good evening, viewers. Good evening, comrades. It was from yesterday, it's been tough because we go in out there in the field. And one of the main reasons why we do what we do is that we have to see the lived experiences of our constituents. We have to see exactly what is happening and what is occurring in the constituency, which brings back to the other fact that there have been numerous complaints about flooding in those areas and poor drainage. And these are the kinds of areas I actually wanted to see for myself. I had to, yes, of course, you drive in the constituency, but when you go there and you see the real life experiences of it, then you're able to make a good judgment as to what is really needed and how do you intervene and advocate on those behalf as well. So that is what it has been for us. went through a number of areas today. We were in Trent, we were in Bakers, and we got some light rain in certain areas, which gave me the opportunity to visit more constituents. Of course, it's, and that's one of the things I spoke about today, that you get their concerns, the very serious concerns and issues, and then you get the light moments where you get a moment to laugh, and constituents invite you into their space and into their homes. And so these are the kinds of intervention I think it's necessary that we do. I actually got a plant from a bee today, so thank you very much. She did tell me, and they do tell you that I support the Barbados Labour Party, but we are thankful for what you do because you bring in awareness to the concerns that we have. So I continue to serve all Barbadians, all constituents, whether you're B or D. That is my responsibility and duty.
Right, and I've noticed that you've been getting quite a few gifts. Last week we spoke about the fish, and you went home the next night and you prepared the fish for us on the campaign, and we all enjoyed it. In terms of you maintaining, because you have a lot of energy, hoping that you're taking your vitamins, that you're getting the opportunity to get adequate rest and so forth. We have 8 more days to go in this election campaign. Do you have the stamina to see it through?
Well, what is happening, and I think what I've recognized is that though we have 8 more days, I have 7 years to catch up with. And so I don't have much time for everything else. So every day we start sometimes from 8, 9 o'clock until sometimes 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, because I try not to canvass only in the day. I also try to canvass in the evening because people live there, need to know what is going on. And I try to meet as many persons as possible. It is my duty and role and responsibility. As I told the constituents, I will attempt with what is humanly possible to meet as many constituents as I can. And this is what I've been doing. So what has happened is when I go to the constituents' home, they were like, we've been waiting for you. We've been waiting for you. Come in, and they share. And I need to thank the constituents for that, because it's never an easy situation to tell someone what is really going on with you, to open up and tell somebody what the kinds of hardships that you've been going through. Some very intimate experiences that people share. It's very difficult to do that. And so I want to thank them for giving me that trust, that they can feel a way that they could trust me with some of the matters, particularly personal matters that they want me to intervene with it. And I take that very sacred and very, very serious, the trust that they place in me to act upon their behalf and to do the right thing by them. And that's what I've been doing. And so I believe that as I go through the constituency, not only that they're sharing the concerns, but they're also providing solutions. They say, Ms. Dujon, we could just do that, But since nobody was listening to us, we couldn't get it done. So there are solutions that they have been helping me with. They have been sharing it with me, and I continue to interact with them.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a comment there saying, good night, Ms. Dujon. Keep humble, walk good, stay true, and stay you. And I think that that's one of the things that people gravitate to you, because and the comparison between you and your main opponent, because they often say that he's arrogant. But a lot of people see you as being very humble, very open, and you can actually see that you do care, right? So I want to encourage you to keep that side of the campaign. How are you managing, and how are the children dealing with it?
I think one of the most things that I think it comes because I'm a teacher as well. When you're a teacher, there's a humbleness, a humility that comes with it. And so you want to reach everyone with an open heart and with a pure heart as well. My children, my children, I think from the time I joined the party, they knew that mom goes to work. And I took them to George Street so that they met persons, they saw what it was like. So my children have been, for the last almost 3 years, they know, they call George Street the Blue House, because it's so they know that when I'm going to work, even my youngest one who's 4, I ask him, so sometimes when I get home late, I'll ask him, do you know where mommy went? And he said, yes, mommy went to work. So they understand what I'm doing. And sometimes I would show them videos and photos of what I've done for the day. And something else I may add, which really touched me, yesterday after we came back canvassing, you told me that some children came looking for me, because when I go to those homes, there are children, and you immediately connect with them. You ask them, and they connect with you. They come to me. Sometimes they would bring me something. They would want me to see their work. They want me to see their toy. I saw a single parent today, a father and a son, and the child may be about 3 years old, and he brought me all his dinosaurs, all his sharks, and I had to spend a whole year, so you have to meet the people where they are. And when you interact with children, it's such a blessing to do that as well. And I have already told you that the constituency will have to put some toys in there, because they will come, the children will come. And any children feel safe in your space, you should always welcome them.
And that is very good. And now I'm giving you an extended stay, because if you want to take a little break, you can. So don't get jealousy of the panelists. But this weekend you attended a luncheon at St. Albans Church, their church luncheon.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience.
Well, it was a great experience to see the community members and church members in a space, to honor mothers. And you saw the mothers, the grandmothers. And what was very interesting, you saw generations of families, the great-grandmother, the grandmother, and the grandchildren. So when we came, we sat at a table with a family, a lovely family. We had our lunch. But at some point, it kind of became a little too political. And I think we have to be very cautious when we have people because I consider it a sacred space. And I think sometimes as politicians, when we go certain places, we have to know when to put the hat on and when to remove it. And I think when you're in a space like that, you come, as I tell people, you come as you are. You come, you're invited to a space. And I don't think it should have been so politicalized at that point. I think it was just a space where it was mothers. And I think mothers should have had the opportunity to enjoy a Mother's Day without a politician encroaching on that space. Because when I came, I didn't, you know how we are. We're just humble, and we came to work. So people just saw me as a mom with perhaps my older daughter. Which is Melissa Howard. We went and we had a wonderful time, and it became a little controversial when there was discussion about the opponent, and he should he's the best thing around and whatnot, and it felt a little bit uncomfortable. But I did win a prize, and that made my day. We had my older daughter had the winning ticket. And so we won a prize, and it was a good event. It was a good event. I just want politicians from all spaces that when we enter people's spaces, that we respect the setting and the space at the same time.
I think we have some very interesting comments up there. There was one about the whole economic situation. Go back up a little bit further. I think that maybe there was from Colin Roach. I believe it was. Right. Right. So this is an ongoing conversation. Basically saying we are in a debt crisis in Barbados, and we are overtaxed. So instead of our revenue generating entities and assets working for us, our private finance from our pockets pay all the bills, and is less for you and I to spend, which is the truth. And that is one of the things that Barbadians are complaining about. You would have heard Senator Walters mention it on Sunday in terms of the tax at the pump, and the fact that they lowered the gas once. Can't remember how many months ago it was, and it was at the same price for over a year. And since then, they have not lowered it again, but the price of gas on the international market continues to go down. All of these are things that are burdening householders, and these are the issues that you're hearing them talk about when you go canvassing.
Correct. It's like every family, and I think that's what the Democratic Labour Party has always done. We focus not primarily on voters per se, but on families and the concerns of families and how we interact and interface with them. And I think that is very important. I think that's why I made the appeal to the government that families need their child allowance back. We need it. It is how we support our family, how it will help in some places as well. So it's very important that we look at that. When this government came in, they removed the child allowance from families. And I think it was such a disservice to taxpayers, to hardworking families in this country. And I think there's so much more that can be done for single parents as well, to provide that allowance, not these short-term $300 right before an eve of an election. We want something that is sustainable, because we work hard as citizens and we expect them to respect that as well.
Yeah, but I'm going to give you a break to sip some water and keep hydrated as I bring Mr. Ensley Grainger into the conversation. Now, Ensley, you have been out canvassing with us. You spoke this evening at the opening of our second office at Rockdundo. Just tell us a bit about that presentation and the ceremony and some of the things that you would have said this evening.
All right, good night, viewers in Barbados and the diaspora, especially to you viewing in St. James North. This evening was to lend support and also encouragement to Felicia in her quest to recapture the St. James North seat for the Democratic Labour Party. There I spoke to those present of what I see in Felicia. In Felicia, I think she represents courage and commitment. She shows that selflessness and that people-centered advocacy, where people seems to be at the center of her canvas. Her mission is to touch the lives of people and wanting to be that game changer, so to speak, in the lives of the residents of St. James North. It was indeed a very touching moment. There were a few tears from at least two people. One remembers the other and forget that they had eyes too as well. But it was indeed the evening was just a change as the pastors prayed with one sense that there was a difference. And what I would say in this by-election, this by-election has more to do, as far as I'm concerned, with the neglect, the abject neglect of the outgoing member of parliament and the Barbados Labour Party on the constituency of St. James North, as it has to do with Felicia Dujon and Chad Blackman. St. James North has been more than good to the Barbados Labour Party. And when one looks to see what they got or what they get in return for that loyalty, it is the Barbados Labour Party falls very short of what a government or a political party who has held a constituency for so long, what they have given to the residents in return. And in my canvas, when you look around the constituency, you see the deterioration of the roads, bad roads. I remember canvassing in Clark's Road in Ashton Hall, and that road is deplorable, and Clark's Road is a fairly big district, and the road is deplorable. Street lightings, many areas of overgrown bush. You look at the community center in Weston being closed, where lack of opportunities for the young people, and those resource centers are things that should be open and providing an avenue where not just the young but the elderly as well can come and perform some kind of useful activity, as it were, and that is not the case. So it took this by-election and Felicia Dujon to light some fire under the butts of the government, to bring them into reality, the stark neglect of the constituency. Where you hear the Prime Minister is now saying, oh, well, Dublin Road will be repaired shortly, only because of the by-election, right? But Dublin Road was bad all the time, right? So, I mean, it is time that government, whichever government, or governments for that matter, and politicians, stop using things like roads and street lighting to hang it over the heads of constituents at election time. It is a duty of every government to fix roads, to put in infrastructure for street lighting, to look after the safety of the constituents, not to be used as any political carrot dangling in front of you for the sake of a vote. And that is why I have a problem, but not necessarily a problem. I am somewhat annoyed with the way how this increase of the minimum wage rate came about within a by-election. But prior to that, you had a budget in March, and there was no mention of any minimum wage rate increase.
Nothing.
So this was an afterthought, just seeking, in my opinion, to capture votes. But I want people to understand, those lower income earners, that though the minimum wage rate has been increased, your national insurance contributions have also been increased. So where we are back to square one. And that being said, there's no reduction in the cost of living. The prices in supermarkets still remain high. So therefore, your take-home dollar still can't stretch as far as they want you to believe. Do not be fooled, and especially you, the residents of St. James North. St. James North, you can send a signal to Barbados, Labour Party that is, to tell them that if you feel so neglected after all these years, stand up on May the 21st and let your fingers do the talking for you. I will end here for now.
Thank you. We will come back to you. Because there were some comments that I wanted to look at on the screen, but we also wanted to, in that, make it clear to the constituents of St. James North that when you vote for the Barbados Labour Party candidate, you're really not getting anything new, and you're really not getting anyone who will stand up and fight for your rights, especially if it goes against the grain or the policy of the Barbados Labour Party. I know that this is something, Dr. Wickham, that we can talk about.
Yes. Fresh in the minds of the people of Barbados, and I would imagine fresh in the minds of Felicia's main opponent, would be what happens to those who dare to speak out against the Prime Minister and her agenda. In Felicia, we have someone who has an established record of years of representing persons, speaking out for those who may not be able to speak for themselves, advocating on behalf of ordinary Barbadians. And I use the term ordinary because the Barbados Labour Party likes to talk about pedigree. Come back to that. But we saw not that long ago when the senator dared to speak out on behalf of the interests of people in St. James. What happened? She was summarily dismissed forthwith. Voting for Mr. Blackman guarantees that he will represent the interests of the Prime Minister and the Barbados Labour Party ahead of the interests of the people of St. James North. because loyalty, more than anything else, to the leader seems to be treasured on that side. You dare to represent the interests and the concerns of the people, and you get fired. We can count on Felicia, as she has been doing for years now, to represent persons' interests. I doubt very much we can count on our opponent to do the same, especially if it crosses hairs with the direction of the party and the leader at any given point in time. As Ensley said, the issues of St. James North, they have had 34 years represented at constituency. All of a sudden, they realized the place dark. And at roads need fixing. And the community center at Western, I took note of that, is an abject embarrassment. There's no way the former MP could have passed by there anytime recently. How could that have existed the way it has for so long? Why wasn't representation made on the behalf of the people of Western for better to be done in that neighborhood? All of a sudden, because of a by-election, now the issues of St. James North will be addressed. I encourage the people, I urge the people of St. James North, don't fall for that. Don't fall for that.
All right. I know we have a candidate here who works tirelessly throughout the day in the constituency, and we're not going to burn you out.
At night.
And at night as well, we're not going to burn you out. So we're going to give you an opportunity to, give your final wrap up and your appeal, because this is just tonight. DLP TV is like our national spot meeting.
Yes.
And you are appealing to the residents of St. James North.
Yes.
What would you say to them? Why is it important that they vote for you on May 21st? What's the difference?
I think the main difference is that God has now given them an opportunity to vote for a woman that actually cares about them and cares about their needs and understands why it is important to make that decision. I have seen the case that has been made for the elderly. I know that there is a minister responsible for elder affairs, and there's very serious concerns about our elders in the constituency. I have gone to too many homes where I've seen outside washrooms and bathrooms for the elderly. They're 78, 74, they're in the 70s. And can you imagine they using washrooms? It's just that kind of inhumane approach to governance that the constituents do not need. The problems of housing. We have too many families that are still struggling with housing. I've met too many families that need that kind of intervention that is seriously needed. With children, very young children and family members. These are very serious concerns that they've had. Even in terms of the roads that we speak about, I will continue to do that. I went to the zone today, and now I'm seeing that the zone is being patched up. We don't want patched up roads. We know what happens with patched up roads already. We do not want that for them. The constituents deserve better. They deserve the best that could possibly get, because they're hardworking citizens. And not forgetting in terms of the various other types of infrastructure, I'm still awaiting that. But also one of the main concerns that the residents of Baker also want is in terms of the bus stops. They need bus stops in those areas as well. And these are the kinds of concerns I think we need to raise those concerns. And our youth, what is very important, as I've said before, we've had a government that has had a mantra that they want to talk about youth empowerment and the youth economy and all of those issues that they believe. But simple things like getting them in terms of a space that is comfortable, a space where they can come and learn and grow. And in some cases to enhance the skills that they already have, that we can't even provide for them. It tells you that you're not interested in our future. It tells us that you're not interested in our youth. And so all of those matters. And I have to touch on the fact that the same opponent that is running for this constituency was also the minister responsible for education transformation a few months ago. And I'm quite certain that may have known, or they may have known, the amount of wastage in that ministry dealing with education transformation, the amount of millions of dollars that was wasted, and still the implementation of the program. So what I want our constituency to recognize is that this government is very good at wasting our taxpayers' money, but very poor at implementation. They cannot implement any projects, any real projects. And these are the kinds of, they spend our money, but there's no tangible outcome to it. And there's no accountability, there's no transparency, so we do not know. And I'm appealing to my constituents. At this point, I am here to serve you. I will ensure that they do not come to you with untruths and facades and illusions, that I am there to speak to you and tell you exactly what is being done and how it has been done. I will remain an honest voice for you. And perhaps that's probably one of the reasons why they try to attack me at all fronts. They're attacking my name, my personality, and all of these are the facts. The fact is, and the fact of the matter is, they recognize that there's someone now who will actually care and stand up on your behalf. And they know I'm a very serious woman, and this woman will not allow this government, whether they have 20 seat aides, they will not infringe on your basic rights. And this is what I stand for, and I will ensure that I have done and will continue to do that for you. And so in the next few days, I will continue to come. You have we have 2 offices. You are free to come to any of our locations, and you have the freedom to also call me at 242-7984. So you're free to do so. And of course, you could email me. So please call me. If I haven't seen you, my apology, but I'm coming. I will get there. I do not have much time, but I will get to you. My name is Felicia Dujon. I will be there because my purpose and my mission is to ensure that no one takes or continue to take advantage of you.
All right. And I think that the producer has a video that he wants to show. I don't know.
Oh, a video.
Development.
Yesterday.
You really have to look at done in the last 7 years with our
It was yesterday.
community or constituency, community house. And this is what we're seeing here. This is the kind of environment that this government believes that our youth should be engaging in. It speaks quite frankly what the government thinks about the constituents, particularly the youth in this constituency. St. James North, we deserve better than this. We deserve to have a place where our young men can come in and do some training, our young women, our single mothers, can do some kind of innovations and in terms of skill sets that will help build them. We can have enough in terms of homework assignments and programs for young persons, but we cannot bring them in this kind of environment. This is a government that has abandoned and neglected their responsibility to ensure that our young persons have a place which is safe, which is conducive, and which is healthy, so that they can come in here to empower themselves to be the best constituents and to the best citizens of our lives. And this is totally accepted. This is totally unacceptable. Look at the door. Look. Look at this. This is totally unacceptable, and we're getting this government that is spending money lavishly over trips and consultants, but they cannot see fit to fix a basic constituency community center for our young men and women. This is what I've been speaking about. This is the same government that has held this constituency for the last 30 years in the candidate, the retired MP for the last 7 years. This is the condition, and this is how they think of us as a people. And this is how they treat our people.
This
is the conditions. This is what they expect constituents to live and abide by, this environment. How can someone be empowered in that kind of condition and environment? We can do better. The people of St. James North requires and they deserve better in this constituency, and it is my duty and responsibility to ensure that better is done for this constituency.
Yeah.
This is locked, but as you can see, we have printers, very old printers, and other kinds of technology that can be used in here. But everything seems that it's not important to them. And then we have a candidate speaking about technology and technology hub. This is what we're talking about, where the facilities are there, but it has gone abandoned. And they're now coming with new ideas to do what? They're just tricking the people. But we deserve better, and I will continue to be the honest voice of the people.
All right.
Whoa. Well, I saw some things in there that I thought was rather deplorable. And I mentioned earlier that this is a constituency that have luxury villas and condominiums. And then you have that as the community center with not even a door, but I don't know if that's the cutout for the cows to come true. So talk to us about what was that and where was it?
It's supposed to be in Western. This is the Western Community Center, and it has been remember, I used to live in Western, and that at the time the community center was very thriving, and people used to do some, very after school programs and things of that nature, karate. I even did some programs with some young men in there as well, where I did some mentoring programs as well. But what this represents is this government. The conditions of this center represents this government and how they think about the constituents of St. James North. If this is any representation of good governance, this is what it looks like. Broken doors. This is what it looks like. Broken promises. And this is what I want the Barbadian populace to understand, that this constituency have been neglected because they seem to be complacent, that the people it's a safe seat, and so we can do as we please. And service and serving people is more than that. It's about not just being guaranteed a vote, but you have to serve the people with some sense of duty, respect, and responsibility. I think it's very important. So when you see that and you see that structure, and for an MP to be there this entire time, and the new opponent who has claimed to be there for a year, didn't they see that as well? Didn't it struck them that, listen, we have to do better for these people? But as I said to my constituents, I am here now, so with my boots, and I will continue to do what I have to do for the people and the benefit of the people of the constituency.
All right.
But Andre, if I may just jump in, and seeing what the video displayed, and this is coming on the heels of unprecedented borrowing, never seen in the history of Barbados. And this is what I would say the small person, the working class person is being offered. And this is indicative of this government and how it tends to treat the small people as anything goes for them. We had a situation a couple of months ago in St. John. They pushed down the pavilion there called in Savannah, right? Where it was Essex or Sussex played the cricket. That is no more. So how can you just go into communities and just treat them like this? I mean, St. James North, free. Break free. This is your time to break free. Break free of the DLP. You can do better. You deserve better. And your time is coming on the 21st of May. I ask you, let your fingers do the talking. Vote with your conscience. Vote as if your life depended on it. Vote for your children and your children's children. Vote for future. Vote for better, because you deserve better. Barbados deserves better.
Thank you.
I think that video really brought quite a few comments on the chat. So I'm going to ask Dr. Wickham to help me read some of them. And then after that, we are going to allow our candidate take a little break.
Yeah.
And, because we need you to burn out, not burn out, but to have all of that energy to go the pocket rocket house door-to-door canvassing. So Dr. Wickham, if you can help me with some of those comments there. Look at the cheers. That's the first one I'm seeing. Oh no.
Shirley.
You go ahead, read them. Yeah.
Shirley says every night they are on their platforms talking a whole lot of nothing. And this is the condition of a community center. Shame on you, government of Barbados.
Yeah, he talking about technology hub. And you have, what was it that you saw? Old printers and
Old
computers?
printers, yes.
So why did he launch his technology hub in Weston?
Yeah.
Why did he? I'm certain that he would have gotten children there, because we still don't believe that children were at Gordon. School
it tells you, it tells you, it speaks volumes that someone who speaks about technology hub, and there you have a community center where all the technology, they may not be up to date,
Mhm.
is closed in a room, it speaks volume, because even someone in IT,
Mhm.
as a computer scientist myself, when people put technology in a closed room, it sends a message that the people of that constituency is not ready or prepared to be technologically advanced. And so these are, you can see that. So it tells you also that perhaps the opponent has not really thoroughly done his research or gone into the constituency to see exactly what is happening. Perhaps he's getting third person interpretation of what is happening. He needs to do his own research. He needs to be on the ground and go
He
into
is not
see
on the
and
ground
see what
because
is happening, because it tells me that if you have not seen that, you will not be talking about technology or tech hub when you have a facility that may have had it. So one of the first things that I'd want to do is to ensure that these things are taken care of immediately. Yes.
exactly. So Felicia, I thank you for
Thank you very
joining
much.
us tonight. I know that you plan to be out canvassing
Yes,
hard
early
tomorrow
morning, yes.
night, and we are hoping that the weather will permit us. We have our national meeting at Yearwood Road, Mount Stanford, which is not too far from the Mount Stanford constituency office, and that meeting starts at 7 tomorrow night. And of course, you will get to hear our candidate Felicia Dujon again and all of her plans for the constituency.
Thank you very
So
much.
thank you for
Thank
being with us tonight. Get your rest
Yes,
and
please.
go fired up for tomorrow.
Good night. Good night, everyone, and see you tomorrow evening.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And Pedro, you haven't been in for a while. So, you know, as a teacher and as someone who has been actively involved within the community, that was deplorable what we just saw.
Indeed, it was deplorable. But like Felicia said, it represents the current government, it represents the Barbadian Party and their approach to the development of young people. They have no interest really in developing young people. What they tend to do is give handouts to young people. They believe that young people should live a life of wisdom. Everything must be handed to them. If you look at the educational system, you see they're not catering to our young people, those who go on to universities, they cannot find any opportunities after leaving university, they have to go abroad. And this school system of itself is a total chaos. The former Minister of Educational Transformation came in with what he thought was a bang, held meetings with teachers. They not even complete the cycle of having those meetings because he really could not manage the ministry. He was given the ministry, I suppose, to give him some visibility and so on, but it worked to his disadvantage. And so he has resigned that ministry to contest this by-election with the hope that they will fool the people of Barbados that he was doing a good job.
I guess they thought that they could solve the problem in education with talk and rhetoric.
Exactly. But we observed prior to him coming, the previous two ministers of education were total failures. And as Felicia said earlier, they spent millions of dollars on promoting education transformation. That unit, I think, is now rendered useless in the Ministry of Education. The director of that project is now special advisor to the Permanent Secretary or to the Minister, something like that. And I believe that the question has to be asked at some point, what has become of the Department of Education Transformation within the Ministry of Education. But let me say the thing, the building at Constitution Road, because I don't know if it is now in the Ministry of Educational Transformation or the Ministry of Tertiary and Vocational Education, where it is. And maybe that's where it is defunct, because they're not sure where to place it. But I want to speak about Felicia Dujon and her bid to win the constituency of St. James North. I saw Felicia Dujon in the video here just now with a raincoat and boots. The first time I saw a politician in boots was in the 1990s visiting Grenada, and the then Minister of Agriculture was touring with us as orchards. He went out to farms and he had on the gear. He was wearing boots, and that's the Honorable Edmund Thomas. Felicia Dujon, of course, having to go into the field yesterday, was dressed for the occasion. She put on her boots and her raincoat. So nothing is going to deter Felicia from representing the people of St. James North. I am sure her opponent did not vote yesterday because he could not wear boots. He could not wear a raincoat. Maybe he could not find the umbrella. Felicia Dujon found the gear, went up there because she has an interest in the people and she has an interest in ensuring that the people of St. James North get better. And I can only implore the people of St. James North to give her the support on the 21st of May, that she will become their parliamentary representative, and she will be in the House of Assembly doing on their behalf what the last representative failed to do in the last 15 or so years, and what this prospective representative will not do. Because once the opportunity is given, I'm sure that he too will fall into the mold of the last representative. Because as I said earlier, that is how the Barbados Labour Party operates. So to the constituents, and I believe that I'll have the opportunity to speak to them on the platform at some point, but I want to just implore them to go there and to vote. We are seeing too much apathy among the voting population in Barbados. There's the belief that all political parties are the same. Clearly, this by-election is showing us that political parties in Barbados, certainly the Barbados Labour Party and the Democratic Labour Party, are not the same. The Democratic Labour Party is the party of the people, and the party for the people. It is a party that believes in the development of people, development of institutions which will develop people. The Barbados Labour Party is a party, as we can see, that is about developing a small cadre of persons, and particularly those who are of bloodline or who have pedigree. And we cannot forget the issue of pedigree in this by-election, because the St. George by-election, the topic was pedigree. And you come into this by-election again, preaching the word pedigree. Many of us in this room
they have an
entitlement
Correct.
to the Parliament of Barbados, and you know they like to boast of who is cousin to who and who is nephew to who. And as you look at the slate, you will see that they are related. I am a candidate in the upcoming general election. I don't have any relations to any of the other 29 candidates in the Democratic Party speaking, because it's not about family. It is about looking for the best people to serve Barbados. And the Democratic Party has gone about searching for candidates who have the capacity to serve Barbados and to serve in the Parliament of Barbados, where laws are going to be made to ensure that crime is brought down, crime is brought under control, that housing is going to be provided for the average Barbadian, that transportation is provided for Barbadians, and that all Barbadians will access an equal portion of the economic pie in this country. And that is really the Democratic Party is moving towards. And certainly this by-election gives us the opportunity to sell that program and to sell our ideas to the general public of Barbados. And we're asking people to come out to the next 8 or so meetings we're going to be having before election, for the day of the by-election, and to hear from the Democratic Party what it has in store for this country. And certainly, I can say to you that the program we have in store for this country after the next election is going to be one that is going to be exciting and going to transform this country.
Yeah. We have a clip there from the producer, because there is a candidate who is real, who is focused and is dedicated, and then there's one that just seems to be pretending. And I think that that is what is highlighted in this video. So go ahead and show the video, producer.
You gotta try to do better. You really gotta try to do better.
We voting for Felicia, yes, we voting for Felicia.
So St. James North, the choice is clear. You really gotta try to do better. And if you want to do better, you got to vote for Felicia. Because
That was
the
an
person
illegal-
they felt in,
Illegal delivery.
it wide, and
Still get lit for 6.
and they get lit for 6. Rightfully so. If you know that you can't do something, why you going out there pretending? If you know that you can't walk the constituency, why you put yourself there to be a candidate? And you driving around the constituency when you got Felicia there walking around the constituency and touching every single house. So show that video again, because I like it.
You gotta try to do better. You really gotta try to do better.
We voting for Felicia, yes, we voting for Felicia.
The man is off target. He is out of his game. What do you say is? I don't call this one on the station. But totally out of his game, out of his depth. Just looks. What do you say? This again? All righty then. That was Pedro. No. But you gotta try. You gotta try to do better, St. James North, and just vote for Felicia.
Yes.
Vote for Felicia. All right. Why? And Dr. Wickham, I know that you got a lot of information there on the importance of voting, because this conversation tonight is about getting the people out. As much as we talk,
Yes.
and the people don't turn out to vote, right? We make no difference. It is you, is the people in St. James North who have to get up and come out to vote. Why is that important?
Important for a number of reasons. I want to touch on something that Pedro just spoke of. It is of great concern to me. Someone from extremely humble beginnings. Not ashamed to say, you know what a pit toilet is, and to be using it even while I was going to school at Queen's College. I didn't come from what they would call on that side pedigree. I didn't come from pedigree. We saw in the November by-election of 2020 for St. George North, November 11th, it was, that multiple BLP speakers on that platform alluded to pedigree and how their candidate comes from good lineage and she has pedigree. They even dared to say that any idiot could play back and ball. That's what one of their senior speakers said. Well,
that one that just went there.
And then to come back now with another by-election and they're back with this pedigree talk. Speaking of how their candidate comes from good lineage, it's almost as if they believe they had some divine entitlement to walk the steps of Parliament, and others who do not come from similar pedigree. I remember back in that election thinking to myself, and to the people of St. James North, who I'm addressing directly, I remember thinking to myself during that election, if they could make fun of the DLP candidate, Floyd Reefer that way, law school graduate, West Indies cricketer, West Indies captain, West Indies coach, make fun of him for choosing to read from a paper, as he did on a number of occasions, basically say that he didn't have pedigree, but his opponent was from good stock and had pedigree. And they're going down this road again, St. James North, with this pedigree talk. What are they saying about you? What are they saying about you? They're saying that you exist only for the purpose of voting for them so that they, who have pedigree, can ascend the steps of Parliament to hold power. But outside of that political lineage, you're not worthy. Someone like myself, who didn't come from pedigree, wouldn't be worthy. I urge you, the people of St. James North, to vote for Felicia, a voice for you. Also of concern to me by way of voting and exercising your democratic right. In a democracy, there is no right more sacred than the right to vote. Some would say a right to free speech, but I think most can agree that free speech has limitations. But in a democracy, there is no right more sacred than the right to vote. You, the people of St. James North, I said it a little earlier in this show, many of you had that right taken away from you on January 19th, 2022, when an election was called unnecessarily during a campaign, when the Prime Minister knowingly disenfranchised thousands of Barbadians, called an unnecessary election without making provision for you, the people of St. James North. Many of you didn't have that opportunity to vote then. A right that is more sacred than any other. Your right to have a say in how your country is governed, your right to have a say in the affairs important to your nation. I urge you to take this opportunity. No COVID pandemic right now. They can't lock you up in isolation like many were then. Unable to leave home, unable to leave isolation centers. This is your opportunity. As I said multiple times tonight, you've heard from Felicia, you've seen the videos, people of St. James North. Community Center at Weston, I've been walking the constituency last couple of weeks. The roads are poor. It is as if they've forgotten that St. James North was on the map, having been on the BLP representation for 34 years. Let your voice be heard in support of a candidate who has a track record in Barbados of speaking out on behalf of persons.
Yeah, and then we have a comment there from CD. The BLP depending on tons of posters on the polls and driving the big man around the constituency, despite his talk about walking. It was just talk, people. It was just talk for exercise to lose. As I told you all last week, if someone proposed to you wearing a white beater shirt with a bare belly, don't expect that by the honeymoon that you can get Johnny Bravo. You can get the same white beater shirt and the bare belly. So it was just talk. That's all. Just talk. He ain't walking nowhere. He ain't exercising. He ain't changing his diet. It was just talk. It was just talk to catch a few votes. That is not him. That is not the man. The person that they're trying to bowl around, that is who you will get. A pretender that don't know nothing about cricket, but want to pretend and he's serving soup at a luncheon. So if you get proposed to in a white beater shirt and a bare belly, the honeymoon night it can be same white beater shirt and a bare belly. So don't go there. Don't go there. All right. The right to vote, Dr. Wickham. So you continue with that a little bit more for us.
The human leader of our democracy at that time, the Prime Minister, like I said, made absolutely no provision for persons who were COVID positive or who were in COVID home isolation or isolation facilities to vote. And I do not want Barbadians to forget that. That is extremely important. As I said, there is no provision in a democracy more sacred than the right to vote. Many countries throughout the world held elections at that time. Even in the Caribbean, Bahamas held elections. And Bahamians, when they held their election on September 16, 2021, even Bahamians who were COVID positive were allowed to vote. Provision was made for them to vote. Whereas in Barbados, zero provision, zero comment, and it was absolutely within the Prime Minister's power because she had sweeping emergency powers to allow for persons to vote. Nothing of the sort was done. No provision was made. And I think that is almost unforgivable, that as the human leader of our democracy, guardian of our democracy, that person would have been knowingly disenfranchised in that way. But St. James North, you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity now. I urge you, your voice, your vote will make a difference. 1-1 adds up. 1-1 adds up. There's a certain person that likes to say 1-1 blow to kill old cow.
Yes.
The BLP needs to be gotten rid of from St. James North, and 1-1 vote will do it.
All right, then. And they know that you have some thoughts too in terms of the importance of getting out there and voting, especially voting for Felicia.
Yes, but what I just want to add on there from Dr. Wickham is that not only was the election called during COVID, but the Prime Minister went on national TV at a press conference and she said, "Believe me, folks, I will not call an election during COVID." And as it always said before the Catholic year, the general election called. 7,000 plus people in quarantine,
Yes. Yes.
right? So I'm saying this by-election is not more about promises. This is about performance or lack thereof. Performance of Hinkson. For the last 7 years, St. James North, we can't handle more promises.
You have a
If
comment?
you,
Go ahead.
sorry, if you are driving a car and you take your hands off the steering wheel, you can't make noise when the car crash. St. James North, keep your hands on this steering wheel. Keep your hands on this steering wheel.
Yeah.
My last point, or my last comment. Chad Blackman is already a minister in the Senate. A vote for Chad Blackman to put him in the House of Assembly, he will still be a minister. A vote for Chad Blackman to put him in the House of Assembly to give the Barbados Labour Party an additional seat. You are saying to the government of Barbados, give me more of the same. Continue to do what you're doing to me. St. James North, I urge you, I implore you, this is your opportunity to say to the Barbados Labour Party, we have suffered under you. We have been faithful to you and you have neglected us. I ask you, come May the 21st, May the 21st, go out in your numbers and vote for Felicia Dujon to bring balance or a little more balance to the democracy of this country as it relates to Parliament. Thank you.
All right. And we have a comment there which supports exactly what you said from Mooney, or Mooney's, I think it is, Mooney. The need of the BLP to capture the St. James North seat is simply to keep doing as they like in Parliament and throughout the country, this country, without anyone to challenge them. And that's exactly what we have been saying to the people of Barbados. If you are not happy with what the Barbados Labour Party has been doing, this is your opportunity, the people in St. James North, to put a word in there for the rest of Barbados, that you are not happy by going to the polls and voting for Felicia Dujon. You will send a strong message to the Barbados Labour Party that they need a serious course correction. You need to vote for change because the rest of us can't deal with it. We cannot deal with the direction in which this country is going in. We cannot deal with a situation where you have a government that you cannot believe what they're saying. You have, I heard a couple days ago, trying to give the impression that the debt when they came to office was $18 billion, when nowhere in the central bank reported ever reported the debt was that high. The central bank reports at the end of, in 2018, had the debt at roughly $14.9 billion in that vicinity. Now, we went through the torture of the IMF debt restructuring, and the debt in Barbados has actually climbed back to nearly that same amount. Is actually about $14.8 billion. So all of the hard work that we went through from 2018 to now has been eroded by this government just simply borrowing, and you're not seeing where that money is going because a number of the developmental projects necessary in Barbados have not been done. You still don't have a South Coast Sewage Project. You still don't have a West Coast Sewage Project. You still have the brown water flowing through the pipes in St. Lucie, parts of St. Peter, even parts of St. James as well, and areas such as St. Andrew, which has been without water for more than 2 weeks in certain areas of St. Andrew. So a lot of the developmental projects have not been undertaken. We're still dependent solely on tourism. And you recognize that the tourists are not coming here because they see the market as being too expensive and is not competitive. So really and truly, when you look at the scorecard, what really would you be giving the Barbados Labour Party a vote for? Because they didn't get any passes for these things. They got a failing grade for everything. For the schools, every week a different school closed because of environmental issues or industrial relation problems or rodents within the schools or problems with the teachers. They just don't care about our education system. Seem as though they have abandoned our children. The hospital is a nightmare for most people in terms of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, the care. When you go, no supplies, no reagents to do tests, and also similar problems within the primary care setting. You can't get a dental appointment for your child at Morris Bay Polyclinic with services, the St. James North constituency. And that's something that you should be able to easily get. You know why you can't get the dental appointment? Because they don't have enough dentists operating in the system. So these are all things that you need to consider when you go to vote. And if you are not happy with the way that Barbados has been going, simply say to the Barbados Labour Party, you ain't worth the vote this time around, and give someone who is willing to work for this country and for the constituents of St. James North an opportunity. Now, we've gone over a little bit. I don't know if there are any other clips there the producer have to show before we go. No, there are none. So I'm going to give 1 minute to wrap up, Mr. Shepherd, and then we will wrap up, and I will also come back and give information about our meeting tomorrow night.
In my closing remarks, I just want to encourage Barbadians who might have relatives in the St. James North constituency to have some conversation with them about the ongoing by-election and to ensure that the information relative to our candidate, Mrs. Felicia Dujon, is shared with all the persons eligible to vote in St. James North, to encourage those persons in St. James North to come out on the day of the election. It is critical, as we keep saying, that we have a large turnout, that the voter apathy in St. James North be not as reflected in the last election, but that is on the decrease, and that persons come out and basically use their democratic right, and that is their voting right, to choose the candidate of their choice. The candidate of this choice in this by-election is certainly Felicia Dujon. If you look at Felicia Dujon, she is pleasing to the eye. She is passionate. She has people at the center of all that she does in the constituency. She has been working on behalf of the people of Barbados for a long time, and she will certainly continue to work on behalf of the people of Barbados and St. James North. She is going to be a voice in the parliament. She's going to provide the opportunity for issues to be raised in the parliament, which will affect the people of St. James North. And I believe that she will bring resolutions to the Parliament of Barbados as a private member to ensure that the government debates and discuss what she wants them to discuss. She has that kind of focus, and I'm sure that Comrade Thorne, the political leader, would welcome having a second voice, somebody who will give him the necessary support in the Parliament of Barbados, somebody who will bear some of the brunt of the abuse on behalf of the people of Barbados as he go about the business of representing their interests. So all I will say to you, people of St. James North, do what you have to do on May 21st. Vote Felicia Dujon, vote for the Democratic Labour Party, vote for democracy, and vote for a strong Democratic Labour Party and a stronger Barbados.
All right. And I saw a comment there, just emphasizing what we've been saying. Someone saying, I think it's Shirley, that they live in Canada and a lot of their friends would like to visit Barbados, but they're saying it is too expensive. Don't forget that this administration, when they came in, they taxed the hotel rooms, they placed a number of taxes on the hotel sector, and in the budget, they taxed the mini moats as well. Well,
$10 a day.
the rental cars, an additional $10 a day, clearly showing that they do not know how to stimulate growth within this economy, and businesses are just taxing their way out through everything, as the person said earlier, to pay for the debt which they have incurred. Dr. Wickham, I'll allow you to do your wrap up, and then Ensley Grainger.
Get out and vote. This is critical, St. James North. Get out and vote. And if you don't live in St. James North, but you're listening to us here tonight, you have family, friends, associates, anyone that you know in St. James North, encourage them to get up, go vote for Miss Felicia Dujon. Get up and vote. Encourage them. That's my part in comments. Your one voice. You may think it doesn't make a difference. What's the sense? But everyone counts. Everyone vote counts. It adds up. It adds up. This seat can be won by the Democratic Labour Party, by Ms. Felicia Dujon. Importantly, someone whose voice has been out there. She didn't start speaking on behalf of the people of Barbados when an election was called. She's been doing this for years. Numerous clips and videos and so on are out there that will testify to that fact. She didn't just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to advocate for persons who cannot advocate for themselves. And she will advocate on your behalf. That's the Felicia that I've seen since I've met her, since I've been trying to catch up with her walk in the constituency, because boy, she moves around. Felicia moves around. She is difficult to keep up with, but that is how she will work. She will work on your behalf. Her main opponent, he will speak on behalf of others. You might get second or third place thought, but she will work on your behalf. So if you're not from St. James North, but you know anyone from St. James North, just encourage them to get up May 21st, go cast their vote. They have 12 hours, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., I believe it is, against the name of Felicia Dujon, a voice for the people.
All right. And Ensley, your final comments?
Yeah. St. James North, your vote matters. Your vote matters. As I said earlier, I urge you, I implore you, I impress upon you. Come May the 21st, get up early and cast your vote for Felicia Dujon to bring about change that is needed in St. James North and by extension in Barbados.
All right. All right. Thank you, Ensley. And I just want to announce that we will be having another public meeting tomorrow night on Wednesday, and this time it will be in Yearwood Road in the Mount Stanpass area. Our speakers, Worrell de Pisa, Neil Marshall, Pedro Shepherd, Felicia Dujon, Ryan Walters, Andre Worrell, and Ralph Thorne. And the chairperson for the night, somebody must be tired, is Shaquani Hunt and Dale Rose. So we invite you to come join us on Wednesday night, Yearwood Road. Spread the word to the people in St. James North. Come out and listen to our meeting, meet our candidate. And those of you who want to volunteer with the campaign, you can give us a call at 242-7984. If you want to know where you're supposed to go to vote, 242-7984. And if you just want to know if you are on the voters list, 242-7984. Thank you for joining us tonight on DLP TV. Do have a good night, and we look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail tomorrow night in Yearwood Road. Have a good night.
Oh yes, God's cleanse them. them caught in a system cold, chasing shadows that take their soul. But the rhythm of hope is strong. Feel the beat, it guide us along. Plant the seed of change in the ground and reap the fruits of love from this song. I'm sure we can rise from the shadows as we shine. Through the pain and the sorrows, leave the darkness behind. For the youths and the future, let the healing begin. In the rhythm of we island, let love pull us in. So come from the dusk till dawn, as we rise up every morn. We'll fly through the skies like plane, all people will rise again.